Folks, I realize that in almost every video, I use the phrase, keep your eye on the ball. I know I say it a lot because a lot of you remind me. I've had so many people message and say, Brando, we're keeping our eye on the ball. And I've had some people say, friends of mine say, Brando, there's so much stuff coming at us, it's hard to keep our eye on the ball. I realize that. But we have got to stay focused on November, and we've got to stay focused on the issues at hand and what is really on the line come November. And that is women's reproductive rights and the things that are happening to them ever since Roe versus Wade got overturned. Now, I realize it's easy to get distracted by Trump's "they're eating the dogs" comment. J.D. Vance went on national television and admitted out loud that they were just creating those stories to get people to talking. Now, he says it's so that people will talk about the suffering of the American people, but we all know that they're wanting to distract from the suffering that their decisions have caused women in this country. And while I'm glad that Kamala Harris absolutely trounced Donald Trump in the debate, I don't think that's where we should keep our focus at. And while I'm very glad that Taylor Swift and Billie Eilish have endorsed Kamala Harris, I'm glad that they're inspiring people to get out there and vote and to register to vote and to check their voter registration. I'm happy about all of that. But Taylor Swift doesn't need to be the focus of this election either. The focus needs to be on the women and what is happening to them ever since Roe versus Wade has been overturned. And folks, this next story, I'm going to go ahead and warn you up front. It's pretty hard to read. So I'm just going to go ahead and warn you ahead of time that this is graphic headed towards you. But we need to keep our eye on stories like this, and we need to report on them as much as we can and make people aware that these things are going on, and they're going on because Donald Trump's presidency led to the overturning of Roe versus Wade. So we're going to go here to this article from the Midas Touch Network. This one was written by Troy Matthews. The first reported deaths caused by abortion bans coming out of Georgia. It's a really sad story here, folks. An investigation by ProPublica details the first known deaths of women who needed abortions to save their lives but couldn't get them in Georgia, a state with a near total abortion ban. Doctors say their deaths were preventable. Amber Nicole Thurman passed away from an infection after she was unable to get an abortion procedure to remove dead fetal tissue from her body. The procedure, a DNC, could land a doctor in Georgia in prison for up to 10 years in a post-Roe United States. I wonder how many people out there, how many people registered to vote actually knows that. Doctors waited 20 hours for Thurman's infection to worsen to the point where, in theory, they could legally qualify for the life of the mother exception to the abortion ban. But by then, folks, it was too late. Amber Thurman died, even though her infection was easily treatable. She was 28 years old, otherwise perfectly healthy, and left behind a 6-year-old son. A state medical review board deemed her death preventable. According to ProPublica, this is the first time in the post-Roe era that preventable deaths of patients resulting from bans on abortion procedures have been reported. Thurman's case is from 2022. ProPublica says the identity of the second woman will be released soon. Vice President Harris said in a statement in regards to Thurman's death, this young woman should be alive, raising her son and pursuing her dream of attending nursing school. This is exactly what we feared when Roe was struck down. In more than 20 states, Trump's abortion bans are preventing doctors from providing medical care. And there was her statement that she put out. These deaths are purely the result of a system that places authority over women's health care on the ideology of prosecutors and judges above medical science and the judgment of doctors whose primary concern is upholding their oath to keep sick people alive. In that system, doctors must hesitate before making the decision to save a person's life, and that hesitation, even for a few hours, will cost lives. The wording of these exceptions are too vague, says doctors. Doctors simply do not know when it's legal to intervene with the DNC to save a woman's life in Republican-controlled states and are not willing to risk a felony charge to perform them. Folks, think about how crazy this really is. This is the world we're living in today. These truths prove so-called life of mother exceptions a mockery and reveal that pro-life ideology has zero concern for life. If these exceptions worked, Thurman would be alive. Thurman's last words to her mother before she died, promise you'll take care of my son. Yeah, folks, that's That's hard to read out loud and realize that that's the world we're living in, and realize that that could be our daughter, that could be our wife, that could be our sister, that could be our friend. And I know me reading that to you probably made you angry. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to play a clip that's going to make you even more angry. Let's take a look at Donald Trump bragging about overturning Wade. And the reason I'm showing you this is because we really do need to stay mad. Roll the clip.
54 years they were trying to get Roe v. Wade terminated, and I did it, and I'm proud to have done it. They wanted to get it back, right? You wouldn't have that. There would be no question. Nobody else was going to get that done but me. Yeah. And we did it, and we did something that was a miracle.
Folks, I know so many of you have said, Brando, when you play the clips, we mute them because we're sick and tired of hearing his voice. But I'm going to keep reminding people that this guy is out there bragging about overturning Roe. Now, after he got up there at the debate and tried to act like that he was for women and he had done more for women, and all we did was just kick it back to the states. More on that later. But all we did was just kick it back to the states. Right after the debate, he posted this on Truth Social. Let me bring this one up for you. This was his post right after the debate. With the long-sought termination, 52 years by everyone, including Republicans, Democrats, conservatives, liberals, and virtually all legal scholars and experts, and with the help of 6 very wise and brave Supreme Court justices, I get sick reading this, I was successful in terminating Roe versus Wade, something which few thought was possible to do. Everyone wanted to go back to the states and the vote of the people and not be in the federal government where it never belonged. I got it done. And now people are voting all over the USA. Folks, there's not one word of that that's true. This is not something that everyone wanted to happen. This is something that an extreme, radical, religious group of people in this country wanted to happen. And they wanted it to happen so that they could control the women. That's all this boils down to. And I want to make one thing very clear. When people says we want to go back, we want to make America great again, I think a lot of Republicans got this Leave It to Beaver image in their head. I think they go back and they think it's going to be the Andy Griffith show all the time. And that men are going to be pulling out the chairs for women and opening the door. And it's going to be like, Andy taking Helen on a date on the Andy Griffith show. That's not what they're talking about when they say go back. We would all love to go back to simpler times like that. That's not what they're referring to. When they want to take this country back, they're wanting to take it back to where the men had the say. And if you don't believe me, just go read Project 2025. They lay it right out in the open that they want the man to be the head of the family. They want the man to be in control and have the say over everything. So this is not something that everyone wanted. He's full of shit when he says that. And when he makes this argument, we just kicked it back to the states. Well, did kicking it back to the states save Amber Thurman? Did it save her life? Did it save the other mother that we don't know the name of yet? And that's only 2 that we know of. I promise you there's probably more. They don't realize that when you kick it, that's one of those statements, we just kicked it back to the states. And so many people will hear that and they'll just shut up about it. Oh, yeah, no big deal. They just kicked it back to the states. Well, the story I just read explains to you what the stakes are in those states and how high they are and what doctors face and the fears doctors have of being prosecuted for performing D&Cs. That's what we're talking about. It's way more... There's way more depth to this story than just kicked it back to the states, let the states decide. Kicking it back to the states did not save Amber Thurman and did not save the second woman who we still don't know her name. But I would be willing to bet that there's been more than 2 since Roe got overturned. And I would be willing to bet that because of this story right here. I'm reading from the Scientific American right here. After the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade, total abortion bans went into effect in 14 states. 9 of these have no exception for rape. Now researchers have attempted to quantify the number of pregnancies that have resulted from rapes in states with a total ban, and the numbers they came up with are staggering. A new study estimates that more than 64,000 pregnancies resulted from rape between July 1st, 2022 and January 1st of 2024. Think about that, folks. Let that one really sink in. In states where abortion has been banned throughout pregnancy in all or most cases. Of these, just more than 5,500 are estimated to have occurred in states with rape exceptions, and nearly 59,000 are estimated for states without exceptions. The authors calculate that more than 26,000 rape cases Rape-caused pregnancies may have taken place in Texas alone. The findings were published on Wednesday in the JAMA Internal Medicine. So how did kicking it back to the states help those 64,000 women? How did kicking it back to the states save Amber Thurman's life? It didn't. Kicking it back to the states is just one of their favorite catchphrases they have now, but people needs to look more into this and realize what's at stake. And I would have loved to have seen that debate been 5 hours long. And I know what you're thinking. You're going, oh, Brandon, that was brutal. Oh, man, that was brutal to watch that debate. But I would have loved to have seen Donald Trump have to spend a lot more time on this subject. And I would have loved to have seen Kamala have more time to bring more and more receipts and explain to the people out there who are just mad over a high grocery bill that these are the stakes we face in November. Yes, the grocery bill is high. I went to get breakfast the other morning for me and my family, went through a drive-thru. It was $17. Oh, it was outrageous. But the stakes that we're facing in this election are way more important than the price of my breakfast every morning. My daughter's future is on the line. Your daughter's future is on the line. And look at the trauma and the hell these women have went through because of that decision that he loves to brag about. So I think it's very important that we always refer to them as the Trump bans. And I think it's very important that we always make him own this, and we don't just let him off the hook by saying, I just went back to the States. Don't let him off the hook when they say that. Share these kind of stories. Because a lot of people, they hear that, oh, it went back to the States, and they think everything is okay. It's not. To the people you hear going, well, you know, groceries were cheaper under Trump. Show them this video. Send it to them. I'll be glad to be the guy to piss them off for you. I don't care, okay? Because they need to understand that these are the stakes, and they're way higher than any grocery bill has ever been, folks. We have to stay focused, and we have to get Kamala over that finish line, and we've got a lot of work to do going forward. So it's not just about voting for Kamala Harris. You're going to have to vote straight down the line Democrat every step of the way. Kamala has to have people to work with. So to people in my part of the world who's going, well, my granddaddy'd roll over in his grave if he knew I was voting for a Democrat. Your granddaddy's, that's his shit. Your granddaddy's in his grave, okay? He ain't here. He's already done his time. Him and your mama's done their time. And the sad part is your mama had more rights than your daughter does now. So what you got to do is you got to forget what Papa would think about you voting Democrat and do it. Both of my grandfathers was Republican. If there's a God in the sky and they're looking over heaven's gate, hey guys, we're going through hell down here. I don't care about labels. I'm voting Democrat straight down the line. I know you voted for Eisenhower, but we ain't there anymore, and we ain't going back to that bullshit either. And I would say that I looked up to those two men more than anybody. But I'm not going to sit here and go, well, Papa won't be voting Democrat. Sorry, Pap. The stakes are too high. The stakes are too high. And I don't know about my grandfather on my dad's side, but I know for a fact the grandfather on my mother's side would be for what I just said, because when my grandmother faced spinal meningitis and almost died, there was one procedure that could save her life, and her own dad was going, let's just pray about it. And my grandfather, who was a lifelong Republican and fought in World War II, said, no, we're not just going to pray about it. We're going to let him do this procedure to save her life. This stuff, folks, it's hard to talk about, but I'm glad I'm sitting here talking about it because more people needs to be. And I don't mind being that guy. I truly appreciate you guys coming along on this ride with me. I thank you for hitting that subscribe button. I was looking at my analytics earlier, and 51% of the people watching me on a daily basis still hasn't hit subscribe. If that 51% would hit the button, man, we would really be soaring. So be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. But more important than any of that I could sit here and pitch to you, be sure you go to the poll and you vote straight down the line Democrat. And if Pap rolls over in his grave, let him turn a couple of moonsaults. I don't give a damn. The stakes are too high.